Hey guys, how are you all today? Let's just get kind of settled here before we get started. Um, Hang on, just bear with me, guys. I just got to pull up some things. Let's see if we can get. We're gonna bring. Um, I'm gonna bring TikTok in a moment. Let me just get settled here with Substack. All right, Substack is straightened out. Hey, Lacey, how are you? Hey, Irish Aggie, how are you guys? Hang on, I think for Saturday morning, let's bring TikTok in and see how that goes. If you guys could just bear with me for another moment, we'll bring those folks in and okay, let's just go live on TikTok. Okay, and put this over here. All right, guys. So I hope you're all doing well this morning. I hope everybody had a nice Friday evening. This is the bedhead report. That's going the wrong way. Got my hat on today because my hair is in morning condition. So I got my Eagles cap on today. We'll see how they do. I think they're playing tomorrow in their wild card. Oh, wait, that's not straight. That's straight, right? That's right. That's working, right? I think it's working. So, uh, oh, I'm sorry. I'm glad you've been traveling, Lacey. It's good to see you, though. I've noticed you haven't. We haven't seen you in a while, so I'm glad you're traveling and getting around, and I'm glad you're back because we need you. Um, but uh, I want to cover a couple of different things this morning. Um, Folks from TikTok, I haven't seen you guys in a while. Hello, you know. Just to let you guys know, I don't really go on TikTok that often anymore. Maybe in the next few weeks I'll start increasing TikTok a little more. But it's just been very difficult on there for pro-democracy work. But please consider following me on Substack. We're live with Substack 2 right now. I'm there every day, Monday through Friday, at around noon. Although I'm adjusting the schedule a little bit for several different reasons. And we do sometimes multiple lives. We've got articles. We've got a really wonderful community on Substack as well. It's called Zenocracy. So if you want to get everything unfiltered all the time, come over to. Please, the link is in the profile here on TikTok. It's at Zenocracy, ZENOCRACY.news. Please subscribe. We have a free subscription option, or if you want to support my work, there's a paid subscription option. Either are both are incredibly appreciated. And there's much as we're frustrated over there and furious with the catastrophic Trump administration, nonsensical regime of chaos, stupidity, terror, and ignorance. We have a lot of love over there. So there's laughter, there's love, there's joy. So I join us over there. And even on this live now, if you're welcome to absolutely stay on TikTok if you're more comfortable. But there's things I can't do here on Substack. I'll be bringing up articles, things I can't do on TikTok. I'll be bringing up articles from time to time. I can't show them on TikTok as I'm reading them because TikTok will the algorithm will ban me, end the live or do whatever else. I have sound effects, for example. I don't know if you guys can hear it over there.
We're going to win so much, you may even get tired of winning. And you'll say, please, it's too much winning. We can't take it anymore. Mr. President, it's too much. And I'll say, no, it isn't.
See,
we have to keep
if you
winning.
come to Substack, you're going to hear that every day.
We're going to win more. We're going to win so much.
We're going to win. You're going to be so tired of winning. But, anyway, that's my little pitch to come over to join us over on Substack. It's a fun place. Okay. But let's do this. So today, in terms of winning, I'm certainly going to talk about what's going on in Minneapolis. I've got some reporting from not NPR, but MPR News about that I want to share with you guys that you may have missed about how it looks like the ICE Gestapo is surging agents, if you want to call them agents, is surging these untrained, incompetent, racist creeps from Louisiana to Minneapolis, which is interesting. So we're gonna cover the reporting about that. We'll cover some of the reporting also that the unaliver, I can't, because we have TikTok up right now, I can't use the M word, but the maniac racist who unalived Renee Good because he wanted to, because it looks like he was mad at her because she wasn't afraid of him, and she wasn't mad at him, which is literally the last thing she said. There's some reporting about him, where he, what he's up to. So we'll go over that as well. And there's some updated Epstein stuff that in the melee of the tragic, would have been preventable catastrophe in Minneapolis. You certainly may have missed the Epstein news. So there's a little bit going on there. But before we get to that, I want to start here. Now, I know, unfortunately, TikTok, I can't show you this website because, again, TikTok algorithm does not like when I get a ding for unoriginal content whenever I bring a website into TikTok Live Studio. So if you want to see it, please join us over on Substack. But if not, you could. I'll try to make the. Just what I'm saying as informative and entertaining as I can without being able to see the actual web page. So what we're looking at now is from Ballotopia. Is this Ballotopia? Hang on, let me just make sure. Oh no, it's actually from Senate.gov. Okay, I thought it was Ballotopia, but this is a list of all of the senators, Democrats and Republicans, that are up for re-election in 2026. One of the things I really want to do over this next couple of months is I want to start doing, I'd like to ideally do it as written segments, live segments, and video posted segments, but I don't have the bandwidth yet to do that. I can't do that all myself, and we haven't grown quite yet. Where we have a big enough team to do this. But I'm going to be doing this at least, and as I'm in this new cohort, this pro-democracy community that I've told you guys that I'm in, that I was fortunate enough to get accepted into. As we get our training and our social media training, and as we come together as a community, this is definitely something. So that I'm going to see if there's folks within that community that want to collaborate with me on this, because some of us doing this together, I think, would be very, very effective. And if any of you guys are interested, just DM me. What I hope to do is looking at this list, and there are 67, if I counted this right, and I think I did, there are 67 Senate seats up for grab in 2026, right? I'm under the naive belief, and you're not going to see this if you look at the Cook Political Report, if you look at Real Clear Politics, if you look at whether the left-leaning or right-leaning political assessments, if you look at pollsters, you're not going to hear this from them because what I'm going to say is politically nuts. But I could be politically nuts, right? Let's all be a little crazy, right? We could be politically nuts. But I think we're in this unique moment that I have never seen in all the years I've been covering and following and interested in politics. We're in this political moment that I can't say I've ever seen, where a midterm election, especially when it comes to the Senate, where it would be possible for a particular party not only to win a 60 and Gamer Vet Dad, I don't know if you're with us, but correct me if I've got these numbers wrong. I think Gamer Vet Dad, you've kind of straightened me out with these numbers. I think I got them right here. Where it is not inconceivable, it is not. It is even. It is. I think it's possible and even potentially likely that Democrats could achieve a 60 vote filibuster-proof majority, and potentially even a 65 vote veto-proof majority. I think that's possible. I think we are in a moment where Trump is so bad, where the profanity and the obscenity of the despicable animals that surround that madman are so offensive to the electorate as a whole. And there is so much, not even just buyer's remorse, but intense outrage, even from many three-time Trump voters this time around, that even in red states where, say, you've got, I'm going to stretch it here, and I know it's pushing things, right? A Mark Wayne Mullen, right? A Cynthia, and I know Mark Wayne Mullen is a push, right? Because he's as MAGA can be, but and he's Oklahoma, right? A Cynthia Loomis, certainly a Lindsey Graham, almost certainly. Well, Joni Ernst is retiring, but an Iowa, a one, because you've got a state in Iowa that was a purple state for decades, well, maybe not decades, for a decade. I don't think it's unrealistic at this point to assume that there's a possibility that Democrats, if we run plausible candidates in those states, that they win the seat, because Trump is so profoundly hated. Because most of America, with a handful, when I say a handful, you can multiply that by everybody in the MAGA cult, right? But and determine what a handful looks like. It's relative to all, to the entire electorate, right? But with the exception of a handful of people who, for example, saw what they saw with their eyes, heard what they heard with their ears, and just reached a point where they couldn't deny what they saw happen in Minneapolis, or actually in St. Paul, right? When they saw a U.S. citizen, a white U.S. citizen, being unalived by an ICE Gestapo member because he wanted to. And it doesn't matter what J.D. Vance says. It doesn't matter what the Village Idiot says. It doesn't matter what Kristi Noem says, right? Because we saw it. And I know those that are, brainwashed cult members, it could be exceedingly difficult to get through. And that's a lost cause. But as we've heard from multiple interviews of eyewitnesses, one of whom said he's a right-leaning guy, but this is unacceptable. When the catastrophic consequences of having elected this imbecile are as black and white as all of us being able to look at this mouse and saying that it's blue when they're telling you that it's red, right? You know what I mean? That's where we are. I think that the electoral pushback is, the potential for electoral pushback is so significant at this point that although Although, professional punditry would rightfully tell me that I'm full of shit. I don't know what I'm talking about, and it's impossible. You're never going to see West Virginia, right, elect a Democrat, potentially a progressive one, even though they had Joe Manchin for decades. Because you can make an argument, was Joe Manchin really a Democrat anyway? But I'm arguing that it's possible. And not only am I, and I'm not just arguing that from a position of wishful thinking. I'm arguing it from the reality of election after election after election since January 20th. Now, again, those in the MAGA cult, whether it be elite MAGAs who are chicken shit GOP House members and chicken shit GOP senators, right, who will do whatever the village idiot tells them to do because they have to, or or rank and file, folks in the Republican Party. I just lost my train of thought there. I just noticed a question that Lacey had about Miss Good. Let me just, because I'm glad you asked this question, Lacey. I know I was telling a story and I'm easily distracted as I'm watching the John, the real John Wick. I haven't seen you in a while. It's good to see you again. Will you just relax, just relax. Take a deep breath over there. Let me get to Lacey, and then I'll get to you, and then we'll get back to this. Okay? So John, just take a breath. John and I, by the way, I haven't seen John in ages because I haven't been on TikTok in ages. And we vehemently disagree on everything. And I think we, at some level, vehemently disrespect each other. But he is the only member of the MAGA community on TikTok who I actually, if as much as we disagree and disrespect each other, we seem to be able to be civilized. I feel like that is, so I'm glad to see you again, John. But hold your powder for a second. I'll get to your comments in a minute. Let me see what Lacey's. So Lacey had said, do you think Miss Good could be the tipping point? I truly hope her, I'm going to use the word unaliving because TikTok's here. Unaliving was not in vain. I wish we could do something before November. 9.5 months seems like an eternity. I think Renee Good's unaliving is absolutely a tipping point, but it's another. I think there are three distinct things that in my mind change the map for the electoral map for the Senate. Democrats are easily going to win the House. I'm not even concerned about that. They're going to win the Senate. What I'm talking about is them winning the Senate in a big way. And I think you have the economy, the crashing economy. You have the Epstein files, to a lesser extent, Venezuela, although we'll see. And you have, but you definitely the economy. We're in a hiring recession now, in essence. That's indicative of deeper problems in the economy. You have the Epstein files, which is not going away, and you have this unaliving in Minneapolis. I think it's going to be an issue. It's not going to disappear with the news cycle. This is not going to be like the assassination of the two Democratic members of the Democratic state legislature by some right-wing nutcase that just went away, right? Even the horrific murder of Charlie Kirk, that to an extent, because for whatever reason, the right just stopped talking about it. I can't figure out why, but that disappeared from the news cycle. I don't think this disappears from the news cycle, especially because since her unaliving, there have been 2 more shootings in Portland. 2 more people were shot in Portland. Since this happened. So the Gestapo is clearly increasing its campaign of violence. So none of this goes away. So I do think there's much we can do before November, and I do think this is a tipping point. Now I think real John Wick. You had mentioned. Hang on. So I would just want to get back to your one of your earlier comments. The problem with you liberals, the problem with you liberals, as you love to react and scream and yell. I mean, John, look, you can't. It's a stretch to say that we all scream and yell, right? But I mean, it's a bit of a stretch to say that that's a liberal thing, right? I mean, come on, but if we're just getting to straight up screaming and yelling, it's a bipartisan behavioral pattern. Not to mention that they were both trained by Antifa. John, you know better than that. And this is what, John, you know better. I know you know better. I know you know that there is no Antifa training center. I know you know that there is no Antifa headquarters. I know you know that Antifa, as an organized terrorist, I have to spell the word, organization, is not even remotely a thing. It's a word. And you know that, and I know you know that dingbat sociopath Kash Patel and his sociopath cohort Pam Bondi, that their investigation of Antifa it's not that it's a sham investigation, it's an investigation into nothing, because there is no organized Antifa out there, training anyone. And you know that. Come on. I know you know that. Anyway, Mitch, what you saw was the Democrats attacking law enforcement. It's all documented now. Now, again, this is look, I'll say this, John. I'll say this. On the one hand, I feel like it's a real thing that people view the world through different filters, right? We view the world through, a lot of us can look at the same thing, right? Depending on our upbringing, depending on our culture, depending on our, depending on our political ideologies, we can sometimes look at the same thing and see it. It'll look completely differently. Like, let me give you an example. Like, I can have this pink thing, this pink tablet here, right? And I could look at it and be like, it's just the way I see it. I just found it in our junk drawer, and it's a tablet for me to write on if I'm taking notes. It means nothing. If I would have taken this tablet out when the Village Idiot and J.D. Putz and the rest of his goofballs went out for dinner at that fancy restaurant, and and they were in New York, in D.C. in that steakhouse, and they were the activists met them there. They knew they were going to be there, and started giving them shit. And I think those activists were from a group called the Pink Whatever, right? Somebody with a different ideology would see this and be like, oh, from the right wing echo chamber would be like, oh, look at Mitch, the liberal, I'm looking for an insult that I can pretend to insult myself that TikTok won't hammer me for, but I can't think. The right wing, the left wing lunatic, right? He's got his pink thing, and that's anti-Trump, right? So you're going to look at it from different perspectives. So I get we can see things through different lenses, through different filters, right? But I mean, facts are facts, and reality is reality, right? And the nonsense to suggest, I mean, it's laughable, right? To suggest that the attack, what you saw Democrats attacking, the nonsense. If you're making the argument that Democrats are yelling and screaming, or liberals are yelling and screaming at ICE agents all the time, and I'm not agreeing with this, but if you're making the argument that they're provoking ICE agents by yelling and screaming at them, calling them fascists, calling them effing pigs, calling them murders, I mean, that's a thing, right? I would argue that it's the ICE Gestapo that is actively inciting these things because they're looking for violence. They're looking to create violence. I would argue that people are just getting intensely angry because they're so tired of first seeing their friends and neighbors who haven't done anything to anyone being ripped and torn apart from their families, being abused, being beat. They're tired of seeing American citizens being slammed to the ground for yelling at ICE agents, right? But I could buy into the logic of the argument on the right for that. I could buy into the argument on the right for that because your filter or your perception could see things differently. But to make the argument that Renee Good, who was unalived, was any threat to any of those three ICE agents, and the one especially Ross, right? The actual Murderer, right? To make the argument that's an argument where you're telling me this is not blue. No, Mitch, Kristi Noem told me that this is green, so therefore it's green, right? I mean it's a ridiculous argument. You're simply ignoring what your eyes saw. And you're choosing either because you just want to believe what Kristi told you and what the village idiot told you because they've trained you to think like that, and you're unwilling or unable to move off of that. Unwilling is more likely than unable, because I've seen over and over again that folks on the right, and even a lot of us on the left, instead of admitting we're wrong, we would rather sacrifice everything because there's too much ego involved in just saying, I was wrong. I made a mistake. I voted for a lunatic, right? You'll leave your principles on that hill. You'll unalive your principles on that hill. Your common sense, your decency, what your senses perceive. One will often let that demise, on that hill, because you can't be wrong. And it's a wonderful exercise in self-expression and freedom. I do it all the time. Just to say, when I'm wrong, I have no problem. Donald Trump hasn't trained me to not be able to admit when I'm wrong. Anybody who's been part of my community on TikTok or Substack, I'm always wrong. And I'm always coming out and saying I fucked up. I was wrong about this. I was wrong about that. Because we are, in a world of such misinformation and heavy opinions about everything, we all fuck it up, right? But the MAGA base, because Donald Trump can never admit he's wrong, and he's trained everybody that that's the path to success, to freedom, to strength, and especially for men, that's the way to prove that you're a real man, is you're never wrong. You can't admit it. To the point now where you can watch a young woman, being unalived in real time, and you just will defy reality, right? And defy the laws of I was about to say the laws of physics, but to defy what your senses see, and just say that she did it. She was trying to unalive them with her vehicle. I mean, it's not even laughable. And you all know better. You all know better. You all know better. You all know better. That's all I could say. You know it's bullshit. So just, that's it. Anyway, John, I'm sure you have other comments on here, but I want to get back to my main story. As you all know, I can easily get distracted. So I want to get back to my main story. So what I'm hoping to do over the next several months, and I've started it, but I didn't have anything ready to put on video or to bring to a live yet. I want to take a look at, because I believe it's maybe naively that Democrats can achieve a 60-seat filibuster-proof majority, and may even be able to achieve a 65-seat veto-proof majority in the Senate, because Donald Trump is so bad. Because the metrics that I'm using isn't just my own opinion. It's that Democrats, and this is inarguable too. Democrats have overperformed in every single major election since every election of note in since January 20th, 2025. It's just a reality. Even places like Florida, you have like that slob Randy Fine, like the new one of the two newest Congress members from Florida, right? He's the latest. He's sort of the Marjorie Taylor Greene replacement, right? Now that Marjorie is professing to be normal and is out of Congress. And even though Marjorie's Georgia and he's Florida, there's always got to be some nutcase from a different state, right? But even his seat, I don't know if he was Mike Waltz's seat or if he was Matt Gaetz's seat. I don't remember which one he ran for and won. But he's a good example because that dingbat went from a 30-point swing to a 10-point victory, right? It was a 20-point underperformance in the district, and it can't possibly have anything to do with him because he's never been a member of Congress before. He's as dumb as a rock. He's volatile. He's obnoxious. There's no platform. There's no ideologies. There's only, destroy the libs, own the libs. And yet he somehow underperformed either Mike Waltz or Matt Gaetz by 20 points. I don't remember what did the idiot win that. If somebody wants to fact check me on it, I don't know if the village idiot won that district by 30 points, 35 points. I don't know. I'm sure it's some double digit number up there in the high 20s, 30s. Who knows? Maybe even low 40s. But that's one example of multiple handfuls of massive electoral defeats, whether they won the seat or they lost the seat, ever since the idiot has been was inaugurated, right? So based on that, and now here in New Jersey, right, you all think that New Jersey is a traditionally blue state, and in presidential elections, we are. But guess what? When it comes to governor's elections, we're not. We had 12 years of Chris Christie. We had Christie Whitman. I don't remember if she was one or two terms. We elect Republican governors here in New Jersey almost as frequently in the last 30 years as we elect Democratic governors, right? And it's always close. When Governor Phil Murphy won his re-election bid 6 years ago, it was a nail biter. I remember I was sitting on the edge of my seat for days. I remember driving around in a town not far away from here called Hasbrook Heights when it was finally announced that he had won the election, and I just pulled over to take a huge deep breath because MAGA nutjob Jack Ciattarelli, who lost again this time around to Mikey Sherrill. Jack Ciattarelli we could have wound up being Florida or worse, God forbid, Texas, right here in New Jersey. So I remember that election outcome like it was yesterday. And I think when all the votes were counted and everything was said and done, I think Murphy won by 3 points, something like that. But it was a nail biter up to the last minute. Christie, I don't remember how many points he won by. The first time, the second time he won big because he hugged Obama and him hugged each other after Hurricane Sandy, and that was it's all it takes for New Jersey Democrats. We're pretty goddamn feckless, right? Yay, Obama hugged Christie. Yay, let's vote for him again. And during Hurricane Sandy, the aftermath of Hurricane Sandy, but again, so when Mikey Sherrill, we were all sweating it here. I don't know if there was too much going on. But let me just type something in the chat so TikTok doesn't. I have to remember to do that instead of incessant babbling. Or if I don't do that, TikTok will say that. Let me just click something here in TikTok, or else it'll say that I'm not here. I don't freaking understand it, to be honest with you, but this is how TikTok rolls. So when Mikey Sherrill, we were all sweating this last election because I was really concerned that Jack Ciattarelli, the MAGA nut, was going to have a chance to win here again. It really looked that way. As much as I had, and I would say to the community, over and over again when I would come here on TikTok. If I didn't live in New Jersey, I would be sure that uh, based on the overperformance of Democrats and underperformance of Republicans, that New Jersey is going to be fine. We're going to be safe. There's no way Chitterelli was going to win. But living here, I would have had to deal with the consequences of that nutcase winning the election, right? So I was sweating it. I couldn't. I was truly worried about it. But you know, when all was said and done, Mikey won by what, 12 and a half points? That's unheard of. That doesn't happen in New Jersey. So with that reality facing us, that's why I think it is not unthinkable that Democrats overperform by 20 seats, right? Like, I think it's not unthinkable, right, that this can happen. So what I'm going to do, I hope I can make the time and I can get the resources and put the team together. But what I want to do is I want to take these over the next couple of months, take these seats and look at these red districts, right? Or look at this. Well, districts don't matter because these are Senate races, not House races. Look at these red states, and take a look at the candidates that are running in each state, and the Democratic candidates that are right now they're moving toward the primaries in those states, and just get a feel with myself and with this community of who these people are. And, you know, and in an environment where I think you could have a West Virginia that for years voted for a Joe Manchin vote for a potentially progressive Democrat. I think you could have a West Virginia, right? What's happening in New York right now, right? What's happening in New York right now, in New York City? You've seen these, granted, Staten Island did not vote for Mamdani, right? But Republicans, many old white male Republicans who wear MAGA hats in Brooklyn, in the Bronx, right? Not so much in the city, but in the boroughs, Long Island even, voted for Mamdani. Because Mamdani, whether you hate him or like him, whether you've been poisoned by the right-wing ecosystem that tells you that he's a communist Muslim, right? He's a Muslim he's a communist Muslim socialist and he's coming to get you, right? Although the Village Idiot praised him after a meeting in the White House. Everybody seems to have forgotten that now too, by the way. But there are, and of course, the Republicans would tell you that anytime you see an old white guy in New York with a Make America Great hat, with a red Make America Great hat on, who voted for Mamdani, that's just a paid agitator, or it's just a Democrat wearing a red hat trying to pretend, right? And that's a thing, right? So, but if you remember, when Democrats were actively losing, right, working class white voters, union voters, right, especially these white guys, who was the one what did these in 2020? What is it that pissed off? I'm not talking about the just racist white guys, but the less racist, white guys who might have voted for a Democrat. It was when Bernie was boxed out in 2016, when Bernie was boxed out of the presidential primary, in essence by Democrats, to get Hillary in. And then there was a conspiratorial thinking that's again what happened to Bernie in 2020. It's not what happened to Bernie in 2020. What happened to Bernie in 2020 was Bernie was winning. If you remember the 2020, the Democratic primary, what happened was Bernie was winning. It looked like Bernie was on par to become the candidate, and then Congressman Claiborne in South Carolina didn't think Bernie could win. He didn't think Bernie would be able to beat Donald Trump. Whether or not that's true, that's another story. But Claiborne was pretty damn sure he couldn't. And he went out and he rallied black women in South Carolina, and they came out in huge numbers. The argument back then was that black women in South Carolina were very practical voters. Sure, they would have preferred Bernie's politics to Biden's politics, but they didn't think that Bernie could win, especially with white rural voters. And they came out in huge numbers. They flipped South Carolina for Biden, and then Biden took off, right? That was the impetus that got Biden, in essence, got Biden to win that. But I'm sorry, my son's just popped in for a minute. No, yes?
I just want to tell you that we're done with lives. If you want to keep doing your lives, you can do it for like another couple hours.
Oh, thanks. My son's telling me I could keep doing my live for another couple hours. Okay, so the thing is, we're very late, guys. We're very late. We're very late getting our Christmas stuff down. We have to take the tree down. We couldn't get to it last week because we had our dear friends staying with us, and we just were having too much fun hanging out. So everything needs to go down the tree, the stuff outside. So my wife and my son just finished taking all the stuff off the tree. So my son's just telling me now that, because he and I have to take the lights down, that's our job, and then the tree's got to go out because it's a real tree. I'll be there in a little bit. But thank you for... I'm on TikTok and Substack, yeah, so you can't come in, So not that it's not that I want to keep my son out, but when we're doing the live stream with everybody, I don't really like my son being on social, especially since I'm a political influencer and things can get weird on here. So anyway, the point that I'm saying, the reason I brought up Bernie and Mamdani is that there is Bernie, had a populist appeal, right? Bernie had an everyday, and he still does, right? And every person appeal, right? And there were the appeal, although it wasn't racist, right? That like Trump's, it wasn't. Bernie certainly is not a racist. He's certainly not full of hate. He's certainly not an imbecile. And I think the bigotry, the racism, the absolutely the victimization, it's everybody else's fault but mine. Much of that appealed to the MAGA base, most certainly. But the populism about that wasn't sort of the racist dog whistle stuff also appealed to a lot of people. So taking this back to this idea that you could have still unemployed generational coal miners in West Virginia, that no matter what the idiot does or says, coal mining is never coming back. Like, it's not ever going to be a thing, ever, 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 ever. It's gone and done, right? And we can, the village idiot can pretend, and Republicans in the House and the Senate can pretend that coal mining is going to be a thing that matters. It's not, and it won't. It's over, long time over. So those generational coal miners, who are actively blaming the brown people for the fact that they don't have any more jobs, right? And now that the ICE Gestapo is running around unaliving, white citizens and getting rid of all or as many of the brown people that they can, the plight of the West Virginia coal miner has not gotten any better. Right? It's not any better. There's no more fucking coal mining jobs today now that we've had a year of the ICE Gestapo exporting anybody they can get their hands on, right? It hasn't gotten any better in West fucking Virginia, right? So you get a Bernie Sanders-like Senate candidate in West Virginia who is well-spoken, aggressive, who understands the moment, right? At a time when you have a mentally ill, severely mentally ill, emotionally unstable president that at most of America hates, right? At a time when the data and the metrics are suggestive that the reality is that Republicans are underperforming in substantially when it comes to elections. It's not unthinkable that you get a Democrat who wins Shelley Moore Capito's Senate seat. And it's not unthinkable that we repeat that. Bill Cassidy in Louisiana, I don't know, but Bill Cassidy, maybe. Because, again, I don't know. I don't really know Louisiana at all. But Bill Cassidy, although he sort of tried to pretend to be until he sort of gave up on it, he's not a MAGA Republican in what you would think is a state that only would, elect a MAGA Republican, right? Susan Collins, obviously she's vulnerable depending on, who's running against her, right? John Cornyn, think about what John Cornyn. I didn't think this whole live was going to be all about this, but I'm on a roll now, guys. I can't stop myself, right? John Cornyn, right? Think about John Cornyn, right? John Cornyn is going up against. John Cornyn is desperately fighting for his political life now, right? John Cornyn used to be a moderate conservative. He used to be a normal person. Then Donald Trump came in, and MAGA became what John Cornyn had to kind of do, and he couldn't really do it that well because that's not what he is. But then Ken Paxton, the unbelievably corrupted criminal attorney general of Texas. I mean, that motherfucker was almost impeached by an ultra right-wing Texas state legislature for crimes. Right? What was it? Securities fraud? Right? He was indicted. And then he became attorney general and just said, no, I'm not going on trial. Right? In the authoritarian regime state that is Texas, right? And that just went on for years. Just fucking normal, right? This is a criminal. Nah, you're not going to indict me. I'm indicted, but I'm not going on trial. I'm the attorney general, and I'm not going on trial. Go F yourself. You're never going to put me on trial. My name is Ken Paxton. And then he's almost indicted, but some of the most extreme chicken shit sociopath, MAGA, racist members of the state legislature in Texas were like, nah, you know what? We're going to keep the criminal in. Donald likes him. I like the guy. He's a good guy. He's my guy. I like Paxton. Don't get rid of Paxton. Paxton's going to be running for the Senate. We're not going to have a friend there. So they back off. So that criminal is primarying John Cornyn. So you're going to, and he's probably going to win. You're either going to have John Cornyn or, who is a half a MAGA chicken shit, or you're going to have Ken Paxton, who is a full MAGA criminal, right? Going up against who? James Tallarico if James wins? You don't think that James has a chance in pseudo-purple Texas to win that if he's the guy that wins the Democratic primary? Come on. Texas is in play. This is what I'm talking about. Tom Cotton. I have no idea who's primarying Tom Cotton or who on the Democratic side is in the Democratic primary in Arkansas right now. I have no idea. But I do know that Democrats have written off Arkansas forever. And they need to not, right? There is a, they need Bill Clinton, President of the United States. Where was he from, right? If we have an excellent candidate, you have Tom Cotton, right? You have video. You could do a, honestly, the DNC needs to freaking hire me. You could do a harsh campaign video against Tom Cotton, right? And what you do is you show, you juxtapose these video images, right? You show the drunken Pete Hegseth's tweets, his posts, his ex posts, his proud posts about every ship that those idiots illegally blew up in the Caribbean, right? You show every one of them in the video, right? And you show, then you somehow in the video encapsulate in another 6 seconds the whole scandal where drunken Pete Hegseth wouldn't magically show, he showed every other video. He couldn't wait to get off publicly showing those videos, right? But then, right, he somehow magically couldn't show you the video where they unalived 2 survivors who were sitting on the top of a turned over boat with their hands up, surrendering, and either drunken Pete Hegseth and or Admiral Bradley, we don't know who, or both, because we can't get a straight story from either of them, right, ordered the military to unalive those 2 guys, right? You somehow put that into a 6-second clip, and then you show Tom Cotton consistently speaking on cable news about how this was a righteous and justified action by the United States, how these unlawful unalivings on the high seas, both breaking international law and breaking domestic U.S. law, how they were okay, how he supported them, how he loved them. You turn Tom Cotton during the campaign into the criminal that Pete Hegseth is. You turn him, even though maybe he's never had a drop of alcohol in his life, but you turn him into the alcoholic that is Pete Hegseth, and you turn him into the unaliver that is Admiral Bradley. And I think Democrats will do that. And if they do that, don't tell me that Tom Cotton's seat is not up for grabs. Let's just continue. Steve Daines, I can't say anything because I don't even know who the fuck he is. So I'm going to skip him. Joni Ernst, she's not running again, right? Joni, anybody, isn't she retiring? She's not running again in Iowa? You know, I don't know what the approach to Iowa is. I know that, and I don't know who's going to, if Joni is retiring, I don't know what Republican chicken shit MAGA wannabe is going to be running in her place. I don't know who's running on the Democratic side over there, who's in the primary, but I do know that Iowa was a swing state forever. So why couldn't it be, again, Lindsey Graham? I mean, do I need to? You know what I mean? Just, do I need to? It is what it is, right? Bill Haggerty, I don't, there was I can't remember everything about every senator, but I there's something like on the, not on the tip of my tongue, but like if I can figure out where in my mind a memory is stuck, it feels like it's like right here. And there's something with Haggerty that I just can't get that I'd like to tell you guys about, but it's not, I can't make it go from my mind to my mouth, because if it pops up in the live, further in the live, I'll share it with you guys. But anyway, I don't need to go through all of these. Each of the rest of these senators. The point is that I'm trying to make is every single one of these seats should be up for grabs. There is no reason that in an era where Democrats are absolutely overperforming and Donald Trump is getting progressively worse and Republicans are underperforming, there's no reason every one of these seats is not up for grabs in the election. So back to the story. So Lacey, Graham doesn't have a strong opponent, unfortunately. I hope someone steps up. He needs to go. I couldn't agree with you more. And if he's ever been vulnerable, it's now. And Lacey's comment kind of leads me to what I hope to do. And what I hope to do over the next several months is look at not necessarily the candidates themselves, the Republicans themselves, but I hope to look at the Democrats who are running in each of the primaries, and then subsequently whoever wins in each of those states, so we have an idea who's out there. So we're informed. We know who's running on the Democratic side in each of these states. On the other side of the aisle, I'm going to go with a rank. All of the Democratic candidates that are running, including John Ossoff, who's in a super, super close race. I'm going to go with the assumption that these are all safe Democratic seats because Donald Trump is so bad. And maybe that's wrong, but that's where I'm going. That's what I'm going with right now. Okay, the real John Wick. Have a great weekend. I'll see you again. Thank you for joining us, John. And again, I know you guys kind of go at it with John. I go at it with John. But the reason, one of the reasons I think it's so important and that I appreciate that John does come on, is because we can go at it in a very intently. He is the polar opposite of where I am politically, and for some reason over the last 2 or 3 years, we always found a way to end it peacefully, and that is somehow where America has to get to. I'm not saying that we have to be. I'm not saying that we have to be tolerant. I think that's the wrong word to use, of politics and policy and actions that are anti-democratic and are in effect a threat to the foundation of our democracy. And I'm not saying that we have to be tolerant. Oh, hang on. Allow TikTok. I'm getting a message from TikTok. Hang on. Allow TikTok Studio to find devices on local. No, TikTok Studio. What are you talking about? Oh, hang on. Let me just tell TikTok I'm still here, or else I have 4 minutes to do this, or TikTok's going to think I'm not here anymore. Okay. So, I just got a weird. Hang on. I just got a weird. For those of you that can see the news story, I just got a weird thing that happened, but I just fixed that. So anyway, I'm not suggesting that we take John's opinions because on certain matters, and we say that we're going to respect those opinions, right? I don't know where John was at with the actual unaliving. I wasn't watching unfortunately, I look here into my camera, and I have to look here to see the TikTok live feed, and down here to see the Substack live feed. So I can't see the feed on this display here in front of my camera. Though eventually I have this display running, just so you guys kind of know what my setup is like for now. I have the display running through a teleprompter. I don't really use it. I don't like to use the teleprompter. I don't need the teleprompter. I don't use it. It's not because it's not because, like Donald Trump, I can't read. It's that I just don't use it. But my wife likes to use it, and I can use the teleprompter as a display, and I can put I could move the live chats into the teleprompter. But I have this weird 57-year-old guy problem, which I recently was at my eye doctor, and he told me this shouldn't be happening, and my eyes are fine. So he's like, whatever the fuck. Where the teleprompter is like 4 feet away from me. And I can, if the teleprompter was like, and I measured this because I wanted to see what, I got a tape measure and I measured this to figure this out. And anybody who else is my age or around my age, tell me if you've got the same shit going on. Is it me? Because again, my eye doctor was like, that's not a thing, Mitch. Get over it. It's in your head. If I move this thing back to 6 or 8 feet and I put on my distance glasses, I can read I could read the live feed if it was in there. If I move it close, like up to like a foot or 2 feet away, and I put on my reading glasses, then I can read it. But if it's like 4 feet away, I cannot read it. It's not far enough for my distance glasses and not close enough for my reading glasses. I don't know what that is. And again, I don't have like doctors that I like would say I love, but my eye doctor is just awesome. Like I love the guy. So I'm not going to get rid of the guy because he can't solve this problem. But anyway, that's just the thing. Gamer that John Wick was arguing that she should have complied. Yeah, and look, thank you, Gamer Vet Dad, for bringing that up because this is what you brought me back to what I was talking about a minute ago. Like that is, I know that is a bullshit talking point. It was the talking point that I don't know I don't know which politician, because it came around before J.D. Vance's babble, and the Village Idiot didn't say this. Kristi Noem, they just went with that. They just went with immediately with that she's a domestic terrorist, and she tried to unalive them with the car, right? And then later on, within hours after that, someone came up with, well, if she just should have complied, and you comply. I saw a Republican. Some Republican member of Congress, I don't know his name, babbling on about that, but I don't know if he was just repeating the talking point. And look, I get that. That she should have complied is the talking point. Now, if a federal officer gives you an order, you comply, right? And that's a bullshit, stupid thing. It's not, especially when they're trying to unalive you, right? You should comply with them. And also, ICE is a joke anyway. They're not. I don't consider them to be federal officers personally. They are, but they're untrained jokes. So they shouldn't be treated with the respect and dignity that you treat actual trained, proper law officers with. They deserve no respect. And screw them. But I think the point that I was making, why I think those interactions that I personally have with Gamer Vet Dad are so important, is that although I feel like I find his thinking on that matter abhorrent, right? I'm making the distinction that he's not the guy that pulled the trigger, right? He's not Donald Trump, right? He's not Kristi Noem. It doesn't mean he doesn't support those people, right? But because at some level he supports these abhorrent behaviors, and I can call him out on those things, and I can vociferously call him out and on what I think would be his worst impulses. And then at the end of the day, I don't call for him to go to jail, right? I don't call for him because at the end of the day, maybe I'm an ACLU non-lawyer, wannabe lawyer when it comes to this kind of thinking, right? But he still has the right to think these awful things. And he has the right to say these awful things, right? And like the ACLU, when we get offended because the ACLU, who is fighting, tooth and nail to save democracy right now, right? They're also the same folks that we lose our minds when they go to court to defend the free speech of like white nationalists or KKK members, right? And I take that constitutionality very seriously because I feel like that constitutional civility, even with the uncivilized, because I feel like it is the foundation, one of the foundations of our democracy. So if after that battle, am I going to have a reasonable conversation personally with that? I want to say the M word, but I don't want to get that ban, right? On TikTok, with that unaliver who did that? No, He belongs. He must be investigated. He must be. Indicted by a grand jury. He must be tried, and the grand jury has the choice to convict him or not. I can't imagine, just with the video evidence and the eyewitness testimony alone, that he wouldn't be convicted beyond a shadow of a doubt. And then a judge, because I believe in the rule of law, unlike the MAGA community, who supports Donald Trump being the rule of the law himself, his rule of law, right? And then a judge, I will accept, because I have no choice, because I believe in American democracy and I believe in the Constitution, I will fully accept that whatever sentence that judge gives to him, and I will never consider him a decent human being. I will never consider that there's someone who could go that far to pull the trigger for no reason, to murder a woman, probably because he was mad at her, right? I mean, that's clearly what it is, right? Maybe there were other things going on in his mind, but clearly, look, at the least, you could call it involuntary manslaughter, and that would be ridiculous. It was straight up murder. So, but when I have a debate or an argument with somebody from the MAGA community who is not going to be the person who pulled the trigger, who is going to express, who's not going to put on a white hood over their head, right? Who is going to express whether it be their perspective or their delusion in a conversation, an argument, a debate, and at the end of it, we cannot hate each other. I'm going to be open to that. And I know a lot of folks don't agree with me in the pro-democracy community, and I respect that as well. But I've been clear about that since I started this. I'm going to have that conversation. And the other reason I wish TikTok hadn't become as as difficult in terms of the algorithm and being a pro-democracy influencer, that I think it's important one of the reasons I didn't, that when I was actively on TikTok, and I would block the most offensive people, people that I wouldn't want to have a conversation with, that were not going to come out at the end of the day and say that we can be civil with each other because they're there. I'm sorry. I just checked. GamerVet Dad, you just mentioned he's going to be on trial. I think I got distracted by that. It's okay. And thank you, GamerVet Dad, for sharing that. Yeah, he is, because it looks like there was been ample reporting that local authorities in Minneapolis are not just accepting the FBI's efforts to cover this up, and they are looking to do their own investigation and potential prosecution. So anyway, my point is that I remember what I was saying now. On TikTok, I never wanted to, other than blocking out the most offensive, the people who at the end of the argument or the end of the conversation, like John and I at the end of the conversation, say, we try to show some mutual respect, and we try to be clear that we don't hate each other, right? That we don't hate each other, and that we're not going to hate each other, right? The other reason, though, why, other than those who are full of hate and will hate me and hate people of color and they say that on TikTok, blocking those, why I didn't want to block the others, why I never really used a moderator. One, because I couldn't figure out how the moderation worked forever, but also I didn't. For a lot of and we're not seeing this. It's not as prevalent now as it used to be, because I don't get much reach on TikTok. But I felt like for a lot of those folks, they would come to TikTok to slam me, to own this lib, right? And they would be angry and they would spew their stuff, but they would be hearing me. And I just felt that that was the only place that they went to hear what was true. Maybe they would go to Fox News, or maybe they would go to OANN, or maybe they were, caught in the right-wing echo chamber, and there was no escaping. So, to own this lib, to insult me, to make fun of me, to yell at me, they'd still be there, right? And I always remember, and this is the last thing I'll say about it, and then I'll kind of leave it alone. For whatever it's worth, we have Joe Walsh, right? And Joe Walsh is a Democrat now, right? He finally switched parties, right? If you follow him here on Substack, guys, you probably know Joe's story, right? He was in 2010, and he was one of the most racist, obnoxious, effective, in the worst kind of way, members of the Republican. He was one of the original Freedom Caucus members. He hated Obama because Obama was a black man that was elected, right? He was one of the original Tea Party creators, right? He was one of the original Tea Partiers. Joe had it in him, the moral structure in him, as appalling as he was. And I remember I would watch him on MSNBC. He was the kind of guy you'd be yelling at the TV about, right? He was awful. But because he had some moral compass left, there was something in there left. When he realized in 2018 that Donald Trump couldn't stop lying, when he realized that Donald Trump was an actual more pervasive and prolific racist than Joe himself was, when he realized mostly that Donald Trump shit on the Constitution, didn't understand it, didn't care about it, and if the little bit that he did understand of it, he didn't like, he hated. When he realized that Trump was desecrating the Constitution, Walsh woke up, right? And he's had this long arc, right? Gamer Vet Dad, what do you call it? The arc of, not the arc of retribution, the arc of redemption, right? Joe had this significant arc of the redemption where now he is a pro-democracy, democratic freedom fighter, right? Like, he's gone, but he's still sustained. I mean, I've seen him have intense arguments here on Substack with folks like Waj Ali and other folks that we might all respect greatly. As much as I like where Joe's at, I can't stand his position on Israel. It's I think he's fucking clueless and out of touch and on the wrong side of history, right? But we've accepted him into the pro-democracy party because it's bigger than his position on Israel, right? Because and Joe has subsequently apologized for the worst of him, for the worst and that's all that Donald Trump brings out in all of them. Donald Trump brings out the worst of everyone. Like Rick Wilson wrote in his book, I don't remember what year it was, everything Trump touches dies. Whether it dies in terms of a business, or whether it dies in terms of a country, or whether it dies in terms of a policy, or whether it dies in terms of the Republican Party, or whether it dies in terms of a particular person's common decency. Everything he touches dies. And until people kind of wean themselves off of him, a part of them dies, right? And for some, it's become irretrievable. They'll just devolve with him. But because I watched Joe's transformation in real time, and again, I wouldn't, if Joe, when we get through this and democracy is saved and the Constitution matters again, whether there's a Republican Party or whatever it is, if Joe kind of goes back to being a Republican and we argue about abortion and policy issues, I don't care. I'm not going to lose my respect for him because he was able to find himself again. We have this other example in the moment, right? And look, I know everybody's going to hammer me as I start on both sides as I go here, but I'm going to go here. We have Marjorie Taylor Greene, right? And personally, I'm not ready to forgive Marjorie Taylor Greene for the litany of race. I'm ready to forgive her for being fucking crazy, right? Right. That I don't care about that, right? The Jewish space lasers was absolutely anti-Semitic, but it was actually just totally fucking crazy, right? And what Marjorie has shown us is I was certain that she was stupid and crazy, right? I was certain that she was Tommy Tuberville. I said it a million times. Like Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, and Tommy Tuberville were the competitors for the dumbest legislators in the United States of America, right? Forever, that was the case. It was Marjorie and Lauren, and then Tommy came around, and he really gave them a run for their money. I still think Tommy has a shot. Really, if he works hard. If he practices and he works hard and he keeps devolving, I think Tommy's got an excellent shot to be the all-time dumbest U.S. Federal legislator in the history of the country. I'm pulling for you, Tommy, if you're watching the live. I think you've got it in you. I think you can do it. As a matter of fact, let's give Tommy, I don't know if you guys are going to be able to hear this. I have on TikTok, come to Substack if you want to. But I think Tommy, because of that, I think Tommy deserves, I haven't had a chance to play with my sound effects. Let's give Tommy a round of applause. Because he could pull it off. But irrespective of Tommy's stupidity, I've realized, again, when this becomes blue, and I used to think it was green, I have to admit it was blue. Marjorie has shown me that she's not really a dumb person. That was performative, because she has told me that she doesn't have to be crazy. It was a choice, right? Donald doesn't have a choice. He's mentally unstable, right? And he's actually really dumb. There's no option there. He has superhuman. I always tell you that the high bars in the Trump administration are stupid and crazy, right? He can't be anything else, right? Marjorie has shown us that stupidity was a choice and crazy was a choice, right? Because now we've seen her come out on issues where she's had rational position. Just because I agree with her new positions doesn't mean that they're well thought out, but she's expressed things that are well thought out recently before she left, right? So she's not stupid and she's not crazy. She can be, right? Do I forgive her for the volatility, the racism, the bigotry, the hatred, the damage that she's done? I forgive. Forgiveness is something that I give easily, because I believe that if you don't forgive people, the rage festers inside of you. It's my own woke spiritual wellness bullshit. I feel like I give forgiveness out easily and quickly because it just, for me personally, filling myself, I feel like the anger and my hatred towards people, I try not to hate because I feel like it hurts me first. I carry that in my body all the time. I believe all this shit, like my cortisol levels and my blood pressure is chronically up if I feel hateful, and I refuse to forgive. So I don't know, so will I forgive Marjorie Taylor Greene for all of that behavior? I don't know. I'm not going to carry hate in my spirit, though, because I don't think it's physically good for me. Do I let that go? No. In the sense of, like, I don't think she's a good person, right? I think Marjorie Taylor Greene is my definition of a bad person. I won't know for 3, 4, 5 years if she stays in the public. Is she going to become the next Joe Walsh? It sure as fuck doesn't look like it, but maybe. I don't know. But I don't feel good about Marjorie Taylor Greene, and I think it's very likely that because she has the ability to be crazy or stupid when it's convenient, and because maybe she sees the writing on the wall that the politics of Trump are over, because the politics of MAGA are over, because again, I don't think she's crazy and stupid anymore. So she's strategic, maybe in the worst way, that maybe she's making this shift for that reason. Maybe the pressure got too much, with Trump going after her. So she decides to quit Congress and lay low for a little while and build her whatever. And we'll see if and when she comes back and who she is. And in 5 years down the line, if Marjorie Taylor Greene is Joe Walsh, I'll say she's become a good person. I'll just say that for whatever, and I'll let go personally of all this shit that I'll say she evolved and she learned and she got better if I believe that that's what happened. Ro Khanna says that's what happened. I can't think of the Democratic Congresswoman, and somebody who, if you Gamer Vet Dad, if you know who it is, or anybody else, the one who got into heated arguments, personal debates with her over and over again. And then when Marjorie Taylor Greene was sitting by herself recently, before she left on the House in the House chamber, and looking broken, I guess, the humanity in this particular Congresswoman caused her to go over and sit with Marjorie for a few minutes. She might argue that Marjorie has changed. I'm not close enough to believe that yet. But the reason I'm talking about this, though, is on TikTok, when I would be okay with, and if you're hearing arguing in the background, that's just my wife and my son are arguing about something. I don't know. They're debating something out there. So you guys may hear it through the microphone. So just, there's not chaos in my house. There's just, a 10-year-old and a parent debating something that he probably wants, or maybe he did something that he's saying she did it, she didn't. So anyway, if you're hearing it, that's what you're fucking hearing in the background. But it's hard to do a live on a Saturday morning when everybody's home. But my point is, I think, I don't even know what my point is anymore. I'm babbling incessantly here. Because whether you call it redemption or whether you call it, waking up from the cult slumber, I think is possible for anybody at any moment. I never wanted to shut that community out of my TikTok when I felt they weren't dangerous. We don't have that here on Substack. That, MAGA folks just don't come here, right, for whatever reason, right? So we'll see what happens. Anyway, that was a long-winded, incessant babble about that. And I haven't looked at TikTok I'm sorry, guys, I haven't looked over at you guys in a while to see what's going on in the chat there. Let me just, I didn't get to, as usual, guys, I didn't get to 3/4 of the things I planned to because I went too long on this. But let me just read a couple of quotes, see what everybody's talking about. Sparky, her position was starting to impact Dad's business. She got media training. Is her dad still, you're talking about Marjorie, right? Isn't her dad is that business still a thing? It was a construction business, right, Sparky? Is it? I mean, I didn't pay that much attention to it. I just saw random bits of reporting about it. And her dad's passed, though, right? Is he alive, still running the business, or maybe the business? I don't know. I don't know much about it, but so Jeff says Biden was the alternative to Trump. Miller was already DEAD inside. Miller is a whole, Scott. It's good to see you, Scott. I haven't seen you in a while. Miller's a whole other conversation that would, that would take but yes, there's nothing there. Miller, I call him I metaphorically refer to him as a vampire. I talk about how he's not around on Friday nights because that's when he flies around Washington, D.C. as a bat and he feeds. But that's the metaphorical equivalent to the fact that he was gone. I don't know what his history is. What caused him to be such a raging. I mean, I would be curious, diagnostically, what the deal is with him if he's a sociopath. I have my own opinions about what's wrong with him in terms of his mental state. But there's like, I, one of the guys, one of the things I want to, those of you in the TikTok community too, who haven't come over to Xenocracy over on Substack, and I get it. I know it's hard to be on 25 different, different platforms at the same time. But one of the things that I'm going to be covering in detail, and we started last week, is Donald Trump's mental lack of health, because I don't think the media is covering it effectively enough. That's going to be predominantly on Substack. I don't think TikTok will tolerate it, the algorithm. I would love for you guys to join me there, because through our little corner of the internet, we're going to try to push that narrative. There was a great piece that I read. I can't remember the gentleman's name. He was a psychologist on Substack who, in essence, diagnosed the village idiot with frontotemporal dementia combined with malignant narcissism. It was a very, very interesting read. But I'm going to be pushing that narrative as much as I can. I think the media needs to pick that up because they should have picked it up a long time ago. Because when we begin to understand his mental state, then if if the electorate understood his mental state, and there was reporting on both sides, if CNN and MS Now and ABC News started having psychologists come on to discuss Donald Trump's mental instability, Fox News, OANN, now CBS, and Barry Weiss, they would bring people on to talk about how normal Donald Trump is, and the country would start having that conversation about in the legacy media space would start having that conversation about his mental fitness or lack thereof. And then when he says something and does something, because that conversation is going on in the country, people would start to make the connection between what he did and what he said and where he's at mentally. Independent media is doing this. Midas Touch is doing this. They're not doing it enough, in my opinion. This is something, if we grow, if Xenocracy, or when Xenocracy grows enough, that I'm able to get the ear of Ben Masalos and some of the good people over in that space. I really want to, I really want to see independent media pushing that narrative more. I think it's imperative, and we're going to be discussing it in terms of whatever credible reporting, whatever credible experts I can find, and I'll let TikTok folks know, the Substack community knows. I recently was privileged and honored to get to get accepted into a cohort, a pro-democracy social media mentorship program. There's a lot of us in it. It's very, very well funded. There's a lot of training and collaboration that those of us, the influencers who are joining the program, are going to have access to. And one of the things, there's a couple issues that I want to bring up, because I think there's a lot of collaborations between influencers that are going to come from this community that I've been accepted to. And one of the things I hope to bring up is to see if there's some like-minded folks there, most of whom, I think most of the people there have much larger communities than I have, who'd like to collaborate on this as well. So TikTok folks, if you're interested or to learn more about this, come over to Substack. You can join us for there's a free subscription. If you want to support my work, you can do the paid subscription. But either way, please join us over there. I don't know how much of this I'm going to be able to do on TikTok. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there. Let me just, what time is it now? So it's 10:45. Let me just go over with you guys. Sorry, guys. I did this to you yesterday, too. Let me just go over with everybody the stories that I didn't get to today that that, if you want to explore them yourself, if I get a chance to do a live tomorrow, later tonight, we'll review them. If not, these are some things that I think are meaningful in the media right now. You got this NBC News report that I'm bringing up. I know Substack you can see it, TikTok you can't. Because I can't bring this stuff up on TikTok. This is an NBC News report, but everybody else is reporting on it. The ICE officer who unalived the Renee Good is a war veteran who spent over a decade working for DHS. It's an interesting piece that doesn't just the headline is deceiving. It almost makes him seem like somebody you should respect. It's not. When you read the article, it's a little bit of a deeper dive into who this guy is, what his neighbors are going through right now. He is apparently, at least according to the reporting, he is apparently a Sparky the Juice. It's at Xenocracy.news. The link is in the profile to get to the Substack if you don't remember Xenocracy.news. My lives are generally, I was doing them at noon, Monday through Eastern time, Monday through Friday. We're a little bit off now. Sometimes they're 12:15. Sometimes there's 1 o'clock, 1:30. It's just because, I've had a bunch of doctor's appointments that I've had to take my parents to over the last week. Those are coming to an end. Thankfully, everybody's good. My mom's good. My dad's good. But we had a shit ton of appointments because there were some potential issues. But thankfully, 88 and 91, they're in good shape. They need a little bit of stuff here, medical tweaks here and there, but they're good. Also, in this program that I'm in, some of the trainings and meetings have affected my schedule, so I'm just working the kinks out. I respect your time, all of your times, and I promise you, within the next 2 weeks at the most, I am going to have a firm, committed live schedule, and because I'm going to make it work, effectively. Sparky, that's where you can find me, and all the lives, most of my lives, because sometimes I do 2 or 3 a day, but most of my lives, if you don't catch them live on Substack, are recorded and posted. Also, I don't have the time anymore to write, unfortunately, as much as I miss it. Gamer Vet Dad, he's one of our member of our Substack community. He's a member of the Xenocracy team. Whenever he gets a chance, he's writing these deep, and he's an incredible data journalist, and he does in-depth analysis. Right now, we have an analysis that he just did which is worth your time. It's a long read, and it's written more like an analytical report than a straight up narrative article. I think that might be, we want to kind of explore that and see how people like that. But I think that might be because it's something you can read a little bit of, walk away from, come back. You can look for the bullet points that are interesting to you. But it's a comparison, and I think it'll give you guys some hope. It's a really deep dive comparison of the fall of Nixon, procedurally and in terms of the processes, the trigger points that took Nixon down, and he compares them to what's happening right now in real time with Donald Trump and the historical triggers that are happening. And we don't see it because, as Gamer Vet Dad, I don't want to give the whole article away, points out in his article, with social media, with the speed of the 24-hour news cycle, everything that happened in the Nixon era is now happening, but is happening a lot faster. And it's really a great piece. And it's another reason, although we haven't cranked up and we're not putting out tons of articles yet, it's another reason to come over to read Gamer Vet Dad's analysis whenever I'm fortunate enough to get one of them. So come over, take a look at it. It's the top story right now on the website at Xenocracy.news. And we're going to we're going to be writing more as the community continues to evolve. So anyway. This article, this NBC News article, is really some good reporting because although the headline is disappointing, because it goes in the piece, you're going to get a feel for where this guy lives, what his neighbors are going through, what the neighbors think of him, how this guy, in essence, was probably, I don't want to say that, well, we could tell by his behavior he's an extremist. What kind of lawn signs did he have? How was he? He was a MAGA extremist that whether or not DHS is lying and he was a 10-year vet, who knows? But it begins to show the profile of a man who, probably a man, I don't know how else, he looks to me like he's in his 40s, who was radicalized by Donald Trump, by MAGA, either while he had a badge and a gun or was given a badge and a gun. So it's good reporting. I don't have time to go into it now, but take a look at it. This next report, again, TikTok, you can't see it. I know Substack, you can. U.S. This is the Guardian reporting, but you can see I just like the Guardian's reporting for this kind of stuff. But you can see what's the latest with Epstein. U.S. Congressman asked judge to appoint official to force release of Epstein files. I don't know if it's sort of like a special prosecutor or I've heard rumblings about it, but I haven't had time to. I didn't even read this article yet. I wanted to read it together with you guys. I'll read it later. Please check it out for yourselves. Though, see what's going on in the news. I'm not sure what Massey and Kahana are doing, but we need to know about it. We can't let the Epstein stuff go astray. And then NPR News, which I guess. Here in Jersey, New York, we have NPR. This is MPR, which I guess is Minnesota Public Radio. They've got a great piece. I wanted to read it with you guys. I can't say it's a great piece because I haven't read it yet, but I assume it is. The headline caught my attention. It's federal officers are leaving Louisiana immigration crackdown for Minneapolis. So it sounds like DHS is, remember they were so proud in the Village Idiot was like, we're going into Louisiana. The governor wants us there. We're going to clean up Louisiana. We're going to clean up New Orleans. And then I think that they make the governor of New Orleans or the Gamer Vet Dad, correct me if I'm wrong here, or the mayor of New Orleans. One of these idiots became the Village Idiot's point man on fucking Greenland, right? Right after. I think it was the governor, right? There's nothing else to fucking do, right? So now, or was it the mayor? But now that schmuck is he's going to be the Donald's Greenland guy, right? For the invasion, right? Or whatever. But anyway, it looks like, because of the supposed terrible, fraudulent, Somali fraud threat in Minnesota. They're surging, because why not? They want to get rid of the black people in Minnesota, right? So it looks like these assholes are surging immigration officers from Louisiana to Minneapolis. Or St. Paul, Minneapolis, St. Paul. So anyway, guys, Governor, thank you, Gamer Vet Dad. Thanks for clarifying that for me. All right, guys, so I'm going to wrap the live now. There's some news stories to check out. I'll certainly be covering them or whatever else comes up. 1 minute at a time, 1 hour at a time, 1 day at a time, one live at a time. It's hard to believe that we're almost a year into this madness. We're 2 weeks away or so from a year. We've made it this far. It's been catastrophic, but we made it this far. I don't know how we did. Keep chunking through it. You chunk. Do what you can. Take a break. Come back in. We're all here holding the line for each other. I love you guys. I will see you, if not later tonight or tomorrow. I'll definitely see you on Monday afternoon around noon on Substack. TikTok, thank you for being here. Be well, everybody, and I'll see you soon. I'm going to wrap up because I have two different streaming platforms. I have to close them up separately. So TikTok, I will see you guys. I'm gonna wrap you guys first, and then we'll do Substack. Thank you, TikTok. All right, TikTok has left the building, and Xenocracy friends, take care, everybody. Try to enjoy your Saturday, and I'll see you guys soon as well. Take care.